Welcome to the Bird Gang Nation Sports Media Show, repping the greatest team of all time. Let's go! Bird Gang 31, he be the host with the most. We going deep, burning teams. They ain't nothing but toast. It's Senior Estes. Sirianni put me in coach, running like Miles Sanders Hill. I bump my head on the post. Touchdown! Yeah, that's coming. Devontae's crazy route running. Jalen hurting them, throwing lasers. The Rager Young gunning. Come on! On the D side, we ride, sack him with Fletcher, lay him out on the stretcher. No one can protect you. Watch Darius lay him, shutting down your routes. Come on! In my green John, eating Philly cheesesteaks. Put up your cups, wings up, if you can relate. Tailgating at the link like Gangsta Stride. To the Bird Gang Nation, that's worldwide. On Sundays, catch the pre and post game. Mondays is Birds on Broad Street with Philly Notion and Cool Cat the Man in Motion. And Wednesdays, the midweek special got you open with JC from Eagles Talk. Hitting like B-Dog, baby.
Welcome to another episode of Bird Gang Nation Sports Talk. I'm your host, Bird Gang 31. Today, Nation, we have a very special guest in the building. It's New York Giant beat writer Paul from WFAN. How you doing today, my guy?
Hey, good to talk to you tonight. Thanks so much for having me, and happy holidays to you and all your folks out there.
Yeah, happy holidays to you too, man. It's definitely that time of the season, and hopefully, one of our team be getting a nice gift this Sunday. So tell us about, WFAN over there. What is that all about over there?
Well, you know, WFAN is the flagship sports radio station of the New York Football Giants. It's probably the biggest number one sports station in the country, WIP in Philadelphia. You know it well. That's one of the family members of Odyssey, which is the company that owns a conglomerate of radio stations, of which the Fan and WIP are a member of. And so I do the Giants radio pre- and post-game show for them. I'm their regular beat reporter, do a weekly commentary and Q&A about them every Saturday. And, of course, I also do a lot of programming on the Giants.com internet site as well. So, as you can imagine, it's been a very long season,
Yes.
a surprising season. And I will come right out and admit to you now and confess that before the season began, I did think that Philadelphia would be the bottom feeder in the division. It's turned out not to be that way. But I did think Philly would be the fourth place team, and I thought the Giants and potentially Washington would be fighting for the top. And that's not how it is shaken out at all.
Yeah, man. Hey, even some Eagles fans thought we were going to be towards the bottom of the barrel there. But yeah, like you said, things change different. We're on a different path now. We're hoping to make that final playoff spot, come to reality this first season with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts at the helm. Like I said, with the Giants, what has it been that you've seen, that's really been holding these Giants back?
Well, they've got a couple of very significant factors that have really crimped their potential. Defensively, losing Blake Martinez in the first month of the season, a guy who, every year comes up with 150 tackles. He's the heart and soul of the Giants defense, specifically against the run, although he is a 3-down inside linebacker. Very smart, very studious, the kind of guy who also plays with tremendous passion. And because he's on the field for all the plays, when they lost him to the knee injury, which he's already had surgery and obviously out for the year, That happened just a couple of weeks in, and it was a crippling blow to this defense. It took them several weeks to get their feet under them and to try to recover. But to be frank with you, the rush defense still has never been exactly what it was supposed to be because they just can't replace him. On the offensive side of the ball, I think it's been well documented around the country. This was supposed to be the year that Daniel Jones would break out. But when you look at this Giants team, and Fox 5 did a great, or Fox, I should say, did a great job last week in putting up a graphic. The Giants' starting skill positions on offense, that would be Daniel Jones at quarterback, Saquon Barkley at running back, Sterling Shepard, Kenny Golladay, and Kadarius Toney as the three receivers in the set, and Evan Ingram as the starting tight end. That starting complement of skill position players has only been on the field together this season for 6 total snaps.
Woo!
That's not 6 games. That's not 6 quarters. That's 6 snaps. When you combine that with the fact that within the first 3 weeks of the season, 2 of their starting offensive linemen had already suffered season-ending injuries, is it really any wonder why the Giants are basically trying to doggy paddle uphill and have really never gotten things going on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I understand. That's exactly what happened to us last year. We had a lot of big-time injuries. It kind of kept us from actually building momentum in that season, man. Yeah, I feel you. That's rough. That's 6 snaps. That's so few. You would think that happened a little bit more. How do you see this Giants team finishing out the season? Is Daniel Jones out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, Daniel Jones has the neck injury. Now, the good news for him is that they've ruled out surgery. And you and I both know anytime you hear that S word, it's not good because that means somebody's got to go in and repair something that's broken. That's not the case with Daniel Jones. They're talking about a sprained neck, which means the soft tissue in the back of the neck was injured in a pileup in the first quarter of the Giants game against the Eagles at MetLife Stadium a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequently to that, they figured out after the game that, there was some damage there. And he's gone week to week getting scans to see if there was enough healing that he could take a hit. He doesn't feel pain. He's able to throw and walk and run around and do everything you and I can do, but he can't take a hit right now because the tissue is too tender in the back of his neck. Mm-hmm. So he's being given the rest of the season off, and the rest will then allow him to recover without any procedures, and then he'll be as good as new for next season. So the Giants are forced to go with either Mike Glennon, who has been the backup the last 3 weeks and has been extremely inconsistent, or Jake Fromm, who they signed literally a month ago at the beginning of the month off the Bills practice squad, 5th-round draft pick last year out of Georgia, who was on the Bills practice squad and had never taken an NFL snap in a regular season game until the 2-minute drill last week against the Dallas Cowboys. He was 6 of 12 for 82 yards and unfortunately turned the ball over on downs at the end of the game. It does trend at the moment as if Fromm may wind up getting the start against Philadelphia on Sunday because Glennon, we know what he is, and the Giants would like to see if Fromm has the potential to be a backup next year for Daniel Jones.
Okay, so you do believe Daniel Jones is you guys' quarterback for the future? Like, and I heard a lot of Giants fans, first time around, talk about how you guys still need to get another quarterback. Are you on that train, or do you believe that Daniel Jones can turn around in the right situation?
Well, I'm going to answer that 2 ways. The fan base does definitely have a faction that believes Jones is not the answer and the Giants have to go elsewhere. They're dissatisfied with the 3 years that he's put in so far. I would tell you there's certainly a durability issue. I mean, he hasn't played the full 16 games in any of his 3 NFL seasons, so I get that criticism. I personally believe over the latter year and a half of his time with the Giants, he has dramatically cut down on his turnovers. So I don't consider that a valid criticism any longer as it was earlier in his career. And I personally believe that I've seen enough from him, an improvement over the course of this time, to say I think he's the right guy. I can't say that I know it, but I think he's the right guy. The Giants seem to feel the same way. And so he will be their starter going into 2022. Remember, that'll be his 4th year in the league. So they still will have the opportunity to lock him up with a franchise tag or a transition tag or with a long-term deal. They can make him go out and prove in 2022 if he gets some pieces and parts back that he is the quarterback they think he is.
Do you think the success does kind of go alongside with Saquon Barkley not really being healthy from year to year since he's been there? You know, like Saquon's always getting that injury. You know, I know he had some injuries this year, last year. You know, he was out ever since after his rookie year. He hasn't really been full time in that backfield. He's a big time, back, once he's on the field, but it just doesn't seem like he's on the field enough, to really make something sustain with that offense over there. And plus your offensive line, like you said, the Giants need to fix their offensive line too as well.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I agree with you. Barkley has been hurt now 3 of his seasons with the Giants, and that's a problem because as a rookie, we saw over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. He was absolutely incredible, dynamic. He was Tiki Barber-like, to be frank with you. He was in his rookie season. He was as good as Tiki Barber was at the tail end of his career when Barber was at his best. So the ceiling was unlimited for Saquon Barkley. And then the injuries started to creep in. Now, if you recall, his second year in the league, he still ran for over 1,000 yards despite playing with a sprained ankle for like 75% of the season. So that was still pretty impressive. And then last year, well, that's when he blew his knee out. And that was just a total waste and a wash. And now this year, he's trying to come back from that. And as he's getting things going and he's shaking off that rust, then he goes and he steps on somebody's foot in Dallas, sprains his ankle, and that wound up derailing the better part of the middle of this season too. So your comments about Barkley are straight on. He's had too many injuries right now to be the guy that they need him to be. They've already picked up his 5th-year option, so he will be here next year as the starting running back. And for Daniel Jones' sake, I hope that he's capable of giving them what they need.
Yeah. Do you think the Giants should, kind of go ahead and look for that second back to be there in case Saquon cannot, stay healthy? A big news on Saquon was coming out of college. He had all those, carries every year. He was like over 300 carries a year over there. You know what I'm saying? They figured that going into the pros, that might be one of the things that kind of hamper him, going into the pros. Because then some of those injuries start kicking in from taking the pounding so much in college.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that, the torn ligaments, the ACL and the MCL in the knee, that wasn't so much a wear and tear injury as it was, he was in Chicago and the knee went the wrong way, and that can happen to anybody. And the sprained ankle was a similar situation. Just stepped on a guy, and that's what happens. So I don't know that they believe that the time he spent at Penn State has contributed to these specific injuries. But it's certainly something that you could bring up, and I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. I don't know anybody can prove it either way. I do think they believe he's just been victimized by some very bad luck to this point, and that it's got to turn around for him. And when it does, they want to reap the rewards from it. I will say that Devontae Booker, the former Bronco and Raider, who they signed during this past offseason, has run the ball rather effectively when he's been in there. In fact, he had that 21-carry, 99-yard rushing performance against the Las Vegas Raiders 6 weeks ago and looked pretty good doing it. So he's good in pass protection. He's more of a between the tackles, downhill kind of runner. And the Giants seem to think that they like him as the 1A to Barkley.
Okay, so just keep what you got and hope for the best with those guys that are trying to go out and get another big name back to add to the fold there. We got a question for you. He said, "Do you think not taking Slater was a mistake by the Giants this year?"
Well, that's a tough call because, to be honest with you, Kadarius Toney, the guy they did wind up with in the first round, has been ravaged with injuries himself,
Mm-hmm.
and he's also been hit with COVID
Mm-hmm.
twice, not just once,
Wow.
twice. So, it's a mess. I mean, it's kind of hard. The question in a bubble, you could say, well, they need offensive line help. So, yes, would Slater have upgraded a spot on this offensive line? I think you could easily say yes. You
Mm-hmm.
could have had a Slater and Thomas, and one of them would have played left tackle, and one of them would have played right tackle, and that would have been an upgrade. That's an easy answer. The
Mm-hmm.
hard answer is, well, now what about Tony? And you didn't really have a fair shot to see what he could do because he's missed almost I don't even know how many games it's up to now. He did get activated off the COVID list today, and they are hopeful that he'll be able to give them some snaps against Philadelphia on Sunday. But without having those two things being on equal footing to make a judgment, it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah. So you do think Tony might make it this week? Tell me, what was your take from the first matchup where you guys beat us? Do you think that we mostly beat ourselves, as opposed to you guys actually being that dominant of a team to keep us down like that?
Well, that was a 13-10 Giants victory at MetLife Stadium. You recall that Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a fumble that was lost in that game by the Eagles. So the
Mm-hmm.
Giants Giants did a really good job there in terms of the takeaway ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's I think 2 of them were in the red zone, by the way. If you go
Yeah,
back and look at that
I
game.
remember.
One of them was an interception at the goal line by linebacker Tate Crowder right before the end of the first half.
Yeah,
Huge play.
huge.
Now, the Eagles ran for 200 yards that day. The Giants' game plan was to allow the Giants' defense to dictate the game,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they did. They figured that they would be able to, take advantage of Jalen Hurts, who I personally believe, and I want to be very clear how I say this because sometimes people misunderstand. I don't think Jalen Hurts is an upper echelon quarterback in the National Football League. I think he's a system quarterback who's an outstanding running back who happens to also play quarterback and does enough within the Eagles system with their defense, with their ability to run the ball, with their sharp special teams, does enough under what they do to put them in position to win games. So I don't want that to be taken as a criticism of him, but that's my description of how I see him.
I hear that a
And
lot too. But I'm like, when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, did you not watch last game? Did you not
well,
see the 22 for 26 or 20 for 26 out there passing? Jalen's
I
definitely
think
always put the
I think
ball on
you
the
would
dime.
probably agree with me though that's the best I've ever seen him as a thrower. I think he had a game earlier this year. Was it the first or second week against Atlanta?
Atlanta, he did good.
And then against Washington just this week.
And
To
then there was
me,
another game in there he threw for 300 yards too. Even
he's
I
had
think
two
that
300-yard
game against
games.
the Chiefs too. But then you can even go back to last year when they did it against Arizona. I just think the biggest difference in terms of Jalen and what people's perspective of him is in terms of a passer is in the beginning of the season we passed the ball like 46 times a game. And you got to look at some key things. One, we weren't running the ball at all, 0%. We're
Right.
number one rushing team in the league off of the last 7 games of football. It
Sure.
wasn't really off of those first 6 games of football. We ran up like a handful of times each game. To the point where like you had such a vanilla offense. But you're still doing the same plays over and over again. Any quarterback I think that would have came in those first 6 games wouldn't have looked good. You know, it just wasn't good game planning. You know, we got a rookie offensive coordinator, rookie head coach, rookie defensive coordinator, not running the ball. Those are a lot of negative. And we got rookie receivers learning the position. You know, Devontae Smith is a great receiver, but at the same time, he is still a rookie. And, you know, he had to learn. He's had a lot of games where you see him struggle a little bit from getting separation from double coverages and things like that. You got guys like Quez Watkins and Rager not running very crisp routes. You know, there's a lot of things that came into play in terms of Jalen Hurts and throwing the football this first year.
I think you're very fair, and the fact that you're able to watch him on a day in day out basis is a lot better than what I get to see. Because what do I watch? I watch the 2 games he plays against the Giants, or obviously whenever they play the Giants, I'll see that game up close and personal. I'll always try to watch at least 2 or 3 tapes of previous games going into the Giant game because I like to scout these guys. What I've seen in Jalen Hurts is there have been times, the Atlanta game, the Washington game particularly stand out. I thought he was incredible against Washington the other night. I thought to me, that was the purest, best game I've ever seen him play. I just haven't seen that enough in his first 2 years in the league for me to believe that he's an upper echelon guy. I think he's more of a system quarterback, okay? But that's not meant to be an insult.
I feel you because I deal with this with Eagle fans as well. Like, we're split on that too. A lot of us believe he is the guy. A lot of people believe he's not the guy. It goes back and forth. But I always just tell people, you got to realize he's only played 17 NFL games, period.
And that's true.
If you look at all the upper echelon guys, go look at their first 17 games. You know what I'm saying? It takes time. There's certain things you have to do, like learn how to read defenses, find out how defenses are going to play against you so you can learn how to, play better against that. They're just things that we want from Jalen at this such early stage of his career. It's just not really reasonable. Like the guy still was like for 5 weeks, he had over 90% quarterback rating. You know what I'm saying? He has almost 1,000 yards rushing and almost 3,000 yards passing. That's like 4,000 total yards of offense coming from one guy, with 24 touchdowns right now. Like that's pretty good for anybody that started out their first 17 games out. You know what I'm saying?
I would guess right now. I'm sure you saw the Giants game earlier this year when he looked just absolutely dreadful, right?
Yeah.
He was dreadful.
But that was Jalen's worst game. Up to that point, he had only threw 5 interceptions in the season.
Right.
So that was a big. Everybody knows that was a garbage game from Jalen Hurts, but you got to expect to have one,
Sure. I'm not saying that's what he is. What I'm saying is I think he's somewhere in the middle between that Giants game and that Washington game the other night. He's somewhere in the middle. Where he is in the middle, I don't know.
But he definitely needs that time. Like I said, he needs that time. He's been in different systems every year playing football for the last 5 years. That's why I think he's definitely earned another year with us for sure. And see what happens next year after you have the same system. You come back in again, under the same system, you'll be able to work more of the system, do better things, change more plays at the line. And, you just be more comfortable in a system that you've learned, and then running the ball definitely helps. We're running team first.
You sound a lot like I sound when I talk to Giants fans about Daniel Jones. There are a lot of factors outside of him where I think he's the guy, and it sounds like you think he's the guy for Philly, but do you know 100%?
If you ask me 100%, yes.
Okay. You're willing to go there.
I'm willing to go there. He's definitely the guy. Like for me, like I said, we got top 10 numbers out of anybody that's ever played the position in NFL history. It's not like he's just top 10 of Eagles. He just broke the Eagles record for most rushing touchdowns by quarterback. And I get the running back side of that, but he's a dual threat quarterback. You know what I'm saying? That's just what he is. That's what the league's turned into is dual threat quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? We're getting more of those inside of the league now than ever, because it puts that stress on the defense, and it helps out your running game. Like we are a run first team. And I don't feel like, just because most of the league trying to transition over to a pass happy league, that every team has to do it. There've been plenty of rushing, teams that won Super Bowls. If you look at all the top flight quarterbacks, there's so many of them that don't even have Super Bowls. You know what I'm saying? Where they passed for 4 or 5,000 yards, and their team itself did not win the Super Bowl. It's a team effort. Super Bowls to me is a team effort thing, where it's like your team has to be there. With all the holes that the Eagles still have, and me being an Eagles fan, I know we still got holes. You know what I'm saying? Our line's solid. We got a couple of good pieces, young pieces that definitely need to develop with our quarterback and our scheme and all that whatnot. But at the same time, there's still older veterans that won't be here next year, and why even waste any kind of capital on another quarterback when you got a good one here, setting franchise records and things, and, one of the top stat-wise to ever do it. And I always tell them, if you go look at the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league right now, right, and you look at their stats, those guys don't have very many rushing stats with it, So they'd be like close to 4,000 yards, whatever. But Jalen Hurts combined is still right there. You got to add his rushing stats because he does run the ball. Just like Lamar Jackson won that MVP, rushing over 1,000, throwing for over 3,000, whatever he did. It still counts. You got, total offense, whether you got 400 on the ground or 400 in the air, it's still 400 yards that you produce for your team and score a touchdown. He's a leader, and that's some characteristics that I think a lot of quarterbacks don't have. They might have the arm talent, but they don't have the leader talent.
I agree with you that I believe at this point the Eagles should go forward with him into 2022. I'm not disagreeing with your premise at all. Mm-hmm. The question will become, is he the guy who can take them to a Super Bowl, just like people ask me about Daniel Jones? Personally, and this is a big picture philosophical difference that you and I will have, and that's okay.
Oh, because fine,
we can agree to disagree. Oh, yeah. I personally don't like to see my quarterback run as many times as some of these running quarterbacks are. That's how Daniel Jones got hurt. Okay, mm-hmm. Daniel Jones likes to run too, and they like to use him in the running game. Eagles like to do the same thing with Hurts. Well, in my opinion, much like guys like RG3, those guys will have a shorter lifespan in the league, and you're running a higher risk that they're going to wind up getting themselves badly hurt and knocked out of a game, one that you may need to make the playoffs. Maybe it's a playoff game that he gets knocked out in. To me, it's a lot more risky and a bigger roll of the dice going with a quarterback who has a very heavy run component to his game. That I'm a pocket passer guy. I'm just, that's the way it is for me. And that's okay because some people like Coke and some people like Pepsi.
Facts. And what to touch on that part, only thing I'll say is like this. RG3, even Carson Wentz when we had him, Daniel Jones, those guys are not like deadlifting 600 pounds. Those guys aren't really built physically like a Jalen Hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like Jalen Hurts is up there deadlifting with the linemen, in the offseason. You know what I'm saying? Like that. How many quarterbacks do you ever really see doing that thing like that? And also, too, is the longer he plays, the more he's able to learn how to read these defenses. If you see him from game 1 to last week against Washington, Jalen even only ran 39 yards last game. You know what I'm saying? He had 2 rushing touchdowns, but he only ran. He's learning to work the pocket. That just takes time. Let's see how far that can actually get him. Where I think Jalen wants to be that quarterback where he's showing you with his arm, but at the same time, if it's open, take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, look,
I'll tell you this. There's no question. With the team that's number 1 in the NFL in rushing at 165 yards a game. And by the way, Sanders is a hell of a back. Scott's got some really good moves. And let's not forget, Jordan Howard's done a nice job for them the last month as well.
He's definitely been running that route. See, last game was the first time you got to see both of them together. Thunder and Lightning.
Yes, that's true.
I think that's a great duel, especially in the November, December football time period where you need to have a tight running game. You know what I'm saying? It's cold outside. No one likes to get beat up on. We got big linemen. Mailata's a giant. Landon Dixon's a giant. Like these guys are huge guys out there, and they're road raiders. So of course, this time of year, you definitely want to keep grinding that road, man. Like let these guys do their thing and run that rocket. And I think that suits Jalen Hurts even more. When you got guys like Goddard having back-to-back career games, and I think to your point too, in terms of our offense with a passing quarterback or a rushing quarterback, or for me, I don't even consider him either one. He's just dual threat to me. I don't say do we won games with him just running the ball, and passing not very many times, like what 9 times that one game in Detroit or whatever. He only passed the ball like 14 times, 9 completions. But we also won games with his arm. You know what I'm saying? Like last game, 39 yards, but he had 300 yards passing with 3 touchdowns, So he's like right there. Whatever you need from the guy to do, he's just a playmaker. He's going to make the play that needs to be made. And even in that Giants game we lost, he threw 3 touchdowns that were dropped. Three times. Ward was wide open. He dropped that. And then Rager twice. He dropped.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me about drops because I believe the Giants are 3rd in the league in team drops. So I know a lot about drop passes. You're not going to get any sympathy out of me on that one.
But I'm saying, at least you guys have guys like Galladay. This guy's supposed to be big-time free agent. You know what I'm saying? He's supposed to be the guy there, know? He's supposed to be that guy there. Shepard's been in the league for a while. He's made plays. You look at our receiving core, Fonte Smith's rookie. Quez and Rager are both second-year players. You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys are not no veterans, no guys that are like, have any kind of credibility around them. Now, as Eagles fans, we hope for them to be great, but that's just kind of not realistic either. Like, we hope for them to be great, but will they be great? That's still, like you said, even with Jalen Hurts, that's still to be determined. Like Devontae Smith hasn't had a great rookie year. We're hoping that he can hit that 1,000-yard mark and be our first 1,000-yard receiver since Jeremy Maclin. But, as you see, there's still games that Devontae Smith gets shut down. It's true. And there's nothing to that except for he has to learn too. There's a lot of things to his game he needs to improve. So I feel with this young offense, I think I put more blame on our defense side of our ball than I do the offensive side, because the defense is full of veterans. You know what I'm saying? You got Slay, you got Cox, you got Hargraves. You know what I'm saying? You got Nelson, you got Harris, McLeod. Those are all veteran football players. You know what I'm saying? You should be able to go in there with your scheme, tell these guys, scheme them up, get them in the right position, because you already know what they can do. Now, I give them a way harder time than I give Nick in this offense. I have to say Nick has been calling better and better games for the last 6 weeks. His play calling definitely got a lot better. He understands how he needs to use this offense and what he needs to do with them. So, man, they're just young. Even from my offensive line, they're all young players on that side of the ball. And, like, youngness going to bring you a lot of, iffy playing, iffy games, where these guys are not, capable of stepping it up, being that superstar you need them to be at that time. But it doesn't mean that none of these guys can. That's how I look at it over here.
No, look, that's fair. I do think that most people would believe that the Eagles are much further along and ahead of where they were expected to be this season. And a lot of it has come down to they've played good enough defense where their back end has done a nice job. And obviously their defensive line has done a really nice job against the run in particular. They're stout. They do a nice job, with their front. Not as impressed with their linebackers, but, they've done a good enough job on defense. They've got a very good scheme on special teams, which they've had forever, and it doesn't matter when the names change. They've always seemed to do some good things on special teams. And then on offense, look, the best thing you can do, especially when you're a team that's trying to climb up from the lower floors of the league. Okay, let's face it, the entire NFC East really has been in the lower floors of the league now for a few years.
Yeah.
But when you're there, the best thing you can do to try to climb up those stairs is to get a tough, rugged offensive line and get that run game going. That's always the first component to trying to get out of the first or second floor and start moving up into the high rise. And the Eagles right now have been able to do that. They followed the football 101 blueprint to get to a better level, where now they can see sunlight, they can open up the windows and get some fresh air. How high they can go, that's still to be determined. But right now, it's got them in a competitive position. I give them credit for doing that. I think the coaching staff has done a marvelous job to get them to achieve to this height at this point.
Yeah. What do you think, after watching last week, or not even last week, a couple days ago, game against the Washington football team, What do you think the Giants will have to do differently this game to make sure they can get that sweep against the Eagles? You know, or do you
Well,
think not having your starting quarterback is already the end all?
yeah. Well, let's not kid ourselves. Glennon's has been inconsistent throwing the ball for the 3 games that he's played. So if he plays, and again, I think Fromm is going to start, but if Glennon plays, it's clear that he's got to do better and be much more consistent and much more accurate than he's been over the last 3 weeks. If Fromm starts, okay, they've got to not only pare down the playbook, because last week he said when he went into that game, he only knew 60% of the playbook. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that they will reduce it some so that he knows a higher percentage. But if he's in there, the Giants have to get their running game going against this Eagles defense
Mm-hmm.
because you do not want Fromm, if he's going to make his first NFL start, to have to drop back 35, 36, 37 times in a game against Philadelphia in the link.
We
We
want him
know,
to. We want him
you
to.
know, well, the Eagles need the game. Look, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's a rival game. The Eagles needed to stay alive in the playoff race. The link has been a house of horrors for the Giants for years.
Mm-hmm.
Mysterious things happen to them down there that sabotaged a lot of their potential victories. And so Jake Fromm, this is a very delicate spot to put this young kid into. So they've got to be able, number one, to run the ball, to at least give him a chance. That's number one. On the other side of the ball, defensively, you've got to slow down. There's no question. You've got to slow down the Eagles' rush. Now, in the game at MetLife Stadium, and I know a lot of people in Philly express this, and you could tell me how much they've talked about it this week.
Mm-hmm.
They had Hurts throwing the ball too much in the first half,
Mm-hmm.
and it cost them. And that was a big mistake because they wound up running for 200 yards against the Giants that day, but it wasn't done in the right spots.
Yes.
And the
Facts.
Giants made them pay for Hurts's mistakes in his passing game.
Yeah, I believe that's 100% back. After he threw that first pick, I would have started running the ball. You know what I'm saying? And then after you get the second, like how many did you want to see before you start to run the ball? I think we need to come out. Like I've been telling everybody, I think our coaches need to be more reactive, when it comes to like starting out the game. I feel like they sit there and they wait. Let's see what the other team's gonna bring to us. And then when you see them going to halftime, they come back out of halftime, and then that's when they're like, okay, now you got it. Now our team looks a lot better. We're doing big things now. I want to see them be more aggressive from the start. Defensively. I think we have good enough cornerbacks and a good enough D line to go ahead and get after the quarterback from point A, the first snap. You know what I'm saying? Start charging these guys. Start getting all kind of exotic blitzes and stuff. You might hit, you might miss on a couple, but at least it'll show your intentions of the game. You know what I'm saying? Stop waiting to have to react to what you see and make teams react to what you're doing.
Yeah, this is a very different Eagles defense from years past. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
go back to the Buddy Ryan defenses, you go back to the Jim Johnson defenses, and they were blitz happy teams. They
Yeah.
were aggressive. They put pressure on you. They came after you, and they made you think about things. And you had to try to guess and hit them in the right spots.
Mm-hmm.
This Eagles defense this year, I think they're in the bottom 3 of the league in terms of percentage of blitz in passing situations.
Yeah.
They have not been a very aggressive defense. They're much more willing to sit back, play the shell, have
I
their
hate it.
defense stop your run so that you're in 3rd and long, and then they'll play their shell and think that they can chase to the ball and stop you that way. And that is so against the Eagles formula of the last 25 years,
Thank you. Thank
you
you,
know?
man. That's what I've been saying. Like, this is not what we're used to on the defensive side of the ball. And we need to get back to what's our bread and butter. Like, I remember that's what made me become an Eagles fan in the first place. Watching those old Buddy Ryan defenses, they didn't care what was going on. Personal fouls or not, they are knocking people's heads off. we had a good, back in that time, it was Randall Cunningham running around, doing his thing. But it was that defense, man, that kept me drawn in. You know what I'm saying? I liked watching them play. I love their aggressive style. And I think that we still have the players to do it. It's just not the philosophy. He's a first time coach too. And like, he's had enough good games for me to even say maybe, depending on how we end this season first, before I go out there and say something, crazy. But he's definitely earned enough trust that we've had games, even like the first Giants game. What, you guys only scored 13 points that game. If you can get every team every week to score 13 points, you're gonna have a winning season. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a lot to ask. I don't know if Buddy could have gotten that. That's a lot to ask.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that is good. You know what I'm saying? Even the first the first 3 games of the season, he started out hot where the teams weren't putting up more than 10 points. So he has a good handful of games. Even like the almost shutout in Detroit. There's a good number of games that shows you that he knows how to call a defense, but all those games were very high pressured games. You know what I'm saying? Where he brought the heat, he would bring that pressure all game long. But you got all these other games, man, where, like you say, sit in that shell. And I hate the shell, man. I hate watching it. I hate the deke and dunk thing, because eventually you're going to score a touchdown. You're going to, I hate the 95-yard drives and whatnot. Like, that's not good football to me. You know what I'm saying? That shows that you're a little bit too cautious to be and I think if you're a defensive coordinator, you should be cautious. You should be aggressive.
Well, I will tell you. Side. Please understand one thing. The game has changed over the years, and it was Tom Coughlin who said many years ago when he was still the Giants coach that most games in this league are lost as opposed to won. And what he means by that is if you give the other team enough of rope, they will usually make enough mistakes to hang themselves and self-destruct.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you don't have an elite talent unit on defense especially, the way to do it is play bend but don't break. Because what you want to do is force the other team to go 10, 11, 12 plays down the field to have to score points. Because the odds are that if they've got to take that many plays to execute a scoring drive, at some point they're going to screw up. They'll fumble, they'll intercept it, they'll give up a pick, they'll get sacked, they'll commit a holding penalty or a false start penalty. They'll wind up dropping a surefire first down pass. Mm-hmm. And that's why teams will play that style, because they'll say, you know what, we don't necessarily have enough talent where we are now to go out and just dictate and win this game on our own. Mm-hmm. We'd rather play a little more conservatively and watch the other team screw themselves up and step into the quicksand, and we'll watch them slowly sink and die while we survive and win the game. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're not a top shelf team. The Eagles are not a top shelf team right now. You would agree with that?
Yeah, we're working on it. We're young. That's how I see it. But like I said, on that defensive side with all those veterans, I feel like personally, he just feels like he's in Minnesota again. When he had that, he was that DB's coach, and he had all that talent around. It's really the linebacker position that holds that defense for being. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we had this top flight linebacker like a Minnesota with a Barr, with a Kendricks or whatnot, those type of linebackers being back there, they would clean up a lot of that messy stuff in that shell, you know, that our defensive linebackers can't do. Barr and Kendricks, they can stop the run themselves. They can drop in coverage and guard some of the best tight ends, receivers, whatever, in the slot themselves, because they are elite linebackers. Without those elite linebackers, that's the hole in the middle that gets exploited the most on our defense. I think he came in with the whole notion, I got all these veterans, I got these, good corners, good safeties, I got this awesome defense up front, but I got young linebackers. And then they went out and tried to get Wilson, who turned out to be a bust. We let him go. You got guys like Singleton, who's a good but not great linebacker. He's a good linebacker. He misses
too many tackles.
Yeah, he missed too many. He's just not physical enough. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. I
agree with you.
We do
I
got
agree.
TJ Edwards that's looking a lot better these last couple of games. He's came out. He's becoming one of the best linebackers we got back there. You know what I'm saying? Because he can stop the run and whatnot. But even he's not an elite linebacker. The Eagles need to stop waiting to third and fourth, fifth round to go find some linebacker and plug them in there and spend the first round and go get a first round talent linebacker or at least pay one in free agency. Because that's the only way I really see that defense becoming the defense that I see is, because you can see what he's trying to do with it. It's just not getting executed because that's a huge weak spot for that defense is at that linebacker position.
Yeah,
When you only
for
have
sure.
one guy that's average and the other guys are like whatever,
Sure.
that's not going to work. That's not the defense to make it work. But
Yeah.
the games that we do look good on defense is when you got these average linebacker blitzing, attacking, because that's what they can do. They're fast, they're athletic. Make them go attack the quarterback. Make them get back in the backfield. Don't let them think so much. Because that's what they lose when they're thinking all the time. Let them be on attack mode all the time. And hope that back end holds up.
Such is the state of the NFC East, where honestly, each of the teams has some very significant holes. Even the Cowboys have significant holes.
Yeah.
All right, let me make that very clear. I know that they're running away with the division right now, and God bless them for being able to pull off what they've pulled off. But they've got holes too. They're not your typical 10-win team. Okay,
Fact.
They're not. And I think in the playoffs, they will find out that things are going to be a little more rough going when they face better competition.
They haven't really been playing good since, Dak got hurt and came back.
Right.
That offense has been trash.
I mean, they
watched it. You take away those special team touchdown, 2 defensive touchdowns, and you look at a whole nother ball game there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
the division is the division is really not very good. It still needs some work. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and we're getting better. Like I said, until another division have all their teams with Super Bowl rings, they can call it the NFC whatever. We're still the division that got all the rings, my guy. You know what I'm saying? We got all of them. We might pick on each other because we're all family. But don't let nobody else outside the division come talk trash about our team. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a no-no, okay? Because then we all got to put up the ring, whether we got 1 or whether you got 5. You putting up some rings over there. So the rest of you be quiet about that one.
I tell you what, man, I'm with you there, and I'd like to see it turn around sooner rather than later for all of the teams in this division.
It always does, though. There's been years we were the best division in football. I remember
for a lot of years.
Yeah,
for a lot of years.
So just because we're on the other side, it has to go back and balance. It has to go back and forth. It has to go back and forth for sure. And we just so happen to be on the downside. But hey, at least the Eagles won the Super Bowl, over the last couple of years. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least we can say, hey, we had a Super Bowl champion 4 years ago. So back up off our division. Back up off our division. But yeah, man, what kind of game do you think this is going to be? And give me a score prediction.
Well, we know that Philly is the best running team in football, and I do think that they will try to make amends for the way they game planned against the Giants at MetLife Stadium. So I think they will go back to the ground, and I think they fully intend on running for 175 yards, and I think they intend on controlling the game. I think they intend on making it a bully ball kind of game, and I think the Giants know that on their side, they've got to play that kind of game themselves if they're going to be competitive for 4 quarters. So I think what you probably will see is an old-fashioned tug of war, 2 teams that are going to try to just absolutely slug it out like a heavyweight championship fight. Where is Smoking Joe Frazier? We need him this Sunday. Because
right?
That's kind of what we're going to see, I think, on Sunday. And it would not surprise me if it's like a 20-13 game. Now, you have to figure. I think so. I really do. Look, you may not know this, but the Giants, in 6 of their last 8 games, including the Philadelphia game, their defense has held the opponent under 21 points. So the Giants' defense is playing playoff caliber football. Even though, they missed Blake Martinez the whole season, and their defensive backs have been ravaged by injuries and COVID. Yeah. They're still playing good enough football that, they're in the upper half of the league in terms of how well they're playing. Defensively,
Yeah.
offensively, it's just been a mess and a horror show. So it would not surprise me at all if this game does not combined reach 40 points.
Ooh, taking the under on it. Yeah, it's possible. Like I said, it's never anything that you usually be able to predict when it comes to these um games here inside the division. Like I always be like, yeah, we're gonna destroy them, and then it's a close game. You're like, God, come on, we had the better team, we should have won. But it's just like one of them things. Division football is always unpredictable.
Let me
You
ask
seen
you a
what the
question.
Saints and Tampa Bay the other they were shut out, and that's Tampa
Yeah.
Bay, Super Bowl champions.
Oh,
The
I know,
Saints
I
are no
know.
world beaters over
Let,
there.
let me ask you a question. They don't give you style points for wins in the NFL. Don't
Right?
you think either one of these coaches would be very happy if they won the game 10-9?
Facts. I'd be happy we won 3-0.
There you go.
Last second field goal. I might have been cussing all game long, but let us kick that field
Wait,
goal.
wait a minute. The Eagles have done that to the Giants too many times over the years.
We
I don't need
did
to see
it.
last second field goal.
We did it. But yeah, I hope, like I said, I think we're gonna win here. I said I was gonna start keeping more division tighter games, and I'm gonna probably have to go with the Eagles definitely getting our revenge game back and getting this win. And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say 31-14. I just
Wow,
think
you see that many points.
I just
That's
see because the Eagles, if you look at every game that we won, it's been 30 or more points. Besides last week, it was 27, I think we scored. So pretty much 30 points, it's a win. Anytime we score less than that, we haven't won the game.
I'll
So
tell you this: if the Eagles or the Giants, either team, scores that many points, it will be because there was a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown, or the fact that there was a lopsided number of takeaways.
mhm. I just
That's
think it's
what
our running game, my
you
guy.
know.
Like we have the number one rush team in the NFL, and even the best rush stop defenses haven't been able to stop us. And I know that was the case going into you guys the first time, but like you said, even in that game, we took too long to start running the ball. You know what I'm saying? If we would have started out from point A and just ran the ball, stay consistent running the ball, I think that game could have been a lot different too. And I think
It could have been, but still, the Eagles ran for 200 that day. Even though they didn't game plan it well, they ran for 200 and still wound up only scoring 7 points because of the turnovers. The
yeah,
turnovers are always the one thing that can mess with everything. Turnovers can turn the apple cart upside down in a heartbeat. You know
yeah,
that.
yeah. But you look at the last week we had two early. We're
Yeah.
down 10-0. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And we still came back and got a double-digit win against the Washington
Well,
football team over there
again,
too.
Washington's got a lot of holes too.
Yeah, they definitely did. They definitely did. Well, hey, man, at the end of my shows, I like to do like an all-time team. This is the all-time team just off of you. It's not stat-based. It's not like, anybody else's favorite. This is since you've been a fan watching the Giants team, give me some favorite players that you can put on this list for me. I'll
Well,
start off and I'll guide you through it. You just take about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes with your answers. But it's pretty something quick and fun I like to do whenever I have a first time guest on here.
go
So
ahead.
he said Eagles 6, Giants 2. They get a safety, my guy. I like that one. I like that one. So yeah, tell me, since watching the Giants, who's your favorite quarterback? Who will be starting on your all-time team, and who would be backing them up? So give me your top
Well,
two favorite quarterbacks you've watched being a Giants fan.
I've covered the Giants for the last 39 straight seasons, so
Nice.
I've been around a long time. Okay, I go back to Phil Simms when he was a young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, personally speaking, Phil Simms is my favorite all time player.
Nope.
You
And
know,
who'll be backing them
but I
up? Who's your
will,
second favorite
but
quarterback?
I will tell you, if I had to pick a quarterback to win a big game, and it was a Giants player, I'd have to go with Eli Manning after what he did in those 2 Super
Two
Bowls.
Super Bowls. Yep. Eli
What
did
else
it.
can you say, right?
Right?
What else can you say?
So you got Eli and Phil Simms, being your two quarterbacks. Give me three running backs.
Oh, that would have to be Tiki Barber
Mm-hmm.
and Joe Morris and Rodney Hampton.
Nice. Give me 2 tight ends.
Mark Bavaro and Bob Tucker.
Okay. 4 receivers.
We would go with Plexico Boris and Amani Toomer. After that, let's see. Guys who I personally covered or saw, I would probably have to go with, oh boy. It's kind of hard to go after those top 2, to be frank with you. I would probably go Victor Cruz and Akeem Nicks.
No, those are nice pieces to throw in there. Give me your starting offensive line.
Wow. Boy, that's tough because you see they've won 4 Super Bowls during the time that I've covered them, and they've been to 5 Super Bowls. So it's very hard for me to say because they've had guys who've won championships and multiple championships along that line. Mm-hmm. But I will say, if you just ask me to pick one specific offensive line in particular, mm-hmm. I really like the offensive line that won Super Bowl 42 because they beat the undefeated Patriots when nobody thought they could. And I thought that offensive line fought well together and scrapped together, and they did the impossible. Nobody thought that the Patriots could possibly lose a game that year, and that offensive line prevented the Patriots from winning that game because they did enough on the ground and did enough for Eli to allow them to win. And they were so unheralded. So I'll just say the Super Bowl 42 offensive line.
Okay, what about the defensive line?
Well, the defensive line now.
4-3 base. Give me 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers.
All right. Well, on the defensive line, I've got to go with Michael Strahan and George Martin as my 2 defensive ends. I'm going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to put Leonard Marshall and Justin Tuck as my 2 defensive tackles. Both of them played some time at defensive tackle, but they were both primarily ends in the league. But I'm going to slide them both to defensive tackle. Okay. My linebackers, obviously, I'm going to take Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks on the outside, and I'm going to take Harry Carson in the middle. If you're going to give me a 4th linebacker, I'm going to have Brad Van Pelt in there somehow. Nice. Okay.
Nice. All right, give me 3 corners and 3 safeties.
Oh, boy, corners. My corners, I'm going to have to go with Mark Collins. Wow. It's good. It's hard for me to leave off Perry Williams because he was just so incredibly gifted. And I know a lot of people would say, well, he wasn't even an all-pro. But he was so incredibly gifted, it would be difficult for me to leave him off. Mm-hmm. And I think, who would be my other corner? Boy, that's
DRC.
DRC was really, really good. He was really, really good. Boy, you know what? Here's you're gonna laugh, but I'm gonna say Corey Webster.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I knew you would laugh. See, because he's another guy who never made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
But he was so good, and especially during that Super Bowl 42 run, he was sensational.
Hey, man, it's your list. That's what I love about it. I like it, man. I had a Panthers content creator. He had a guy that was on that never even made the official roster of the year. He goes, during the training camp, he was such a good player. I liked him so much. And I dude, never even played for your team. So, hey, it doesn't matter who you like. It's all good, my guy. It's all good.
My safeties, well, I do go back. I even though I grew up watching him, but I didn't cover him, was Spider Lockhart, who played for the Giants back in the 70s. I would have to have him on my team. And I would have to have Antrell Roll on my team. And who would be my other safety? I really liked the guy a lot as a person, and he brought so many intangibles to the team. When he got to the Giants, in the 2007 for the Super Bowl 42 team. He wasn't the player that he had been earlier in his career, but Deion Grant was a hell of a player.
Yes, Grant was a good player.
And he brought so many intangibles. Yeah. So I would, I didn't necessarily give you the best guys at every position. In some cases, I gave you guys who I just really appreciated for a lot of reasons and intangibles, not necessarily having the best skills at the time that they were here.
I like it. I like it. Who would be your kicker, your punter, and, your special teams ace, return ace?
Well, my punter would have to be Jeff Fiegels. Who played more games in NFL history without missing than anybody, and he was such a surgeon with the football. He was a scientist who, in terms of finding the perfect corner, he was phenomenal. And I think of the punter as a weapon.
Yeah, he
can help you with strategies. I'm going to go with Fiegels. Kicker. What's hard about the kicker? The kicker is really, really hard because Lawrence Tynes made those critical kicks that helped the Giants win those 2 Super Bowls. Mm-hmm. So it's hard not to pick him. But over the course of a career, there were other kickers who were better. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for Raul Allegre in 1986, who had back-to-back game-deciding kicks against the Broncos and the Vikings, the Giants never would have got that first Super Bowl in 1986. So I'm going to say Raul Allegre because there's a special place in Giants lore for Allegre, helping them win that first Super Bowl. Those 2 victories back-to-back, if they don't get them, I'm not so sure that they go on the dominant run that they had when they won Super Bowl 21.
Nice. And then your kick returner.
Oh, that's easy. David Meggett. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. He was that guy, and you'll relate to this.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes when a team kicks off or punts, even if you're going to get the ball as a fan, sometimes you're not paying attention to that play. Mm-hmm. Or maybe that's the play where you quickly run to the bathroom because the commercial's coming up. Mm-hmm. Or you run to the kitchen. You didn't do that when Meggett was on the field.
No, you didn't.
When the other team kicked the ball, you wanted to make sure you saw Meggett get the ball because he could do something special.
Yeah, he was definitely special. I hated Meggett. Returning kicks, man. Yeah, I hated him to returning kicks. Man. Give me an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and a head coach for this team.
Oh, boy. Well, my dear friend is Kevin Gilbride. He is my partner when we announce college football games together in the Northeast Conference, which is an FCS league. And he is my partner in the booth. So I'm going to have to go with Kevin Gilbride. Defensive coordinator, this is so difficult because obviously I was around and covered the teams when Bill Belichick was Parcells' defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. But from a personal perspective, I became very friendly with Steve Spagnuolo. So I'm going to have to say, even though Belichick is the greatest, him and Lombardi are the 2 greatest football coaches that the world has ever seen. I'm going to have to tell
Big Red.
I'm gonna have to say personally, I have such a good friendship with Steve Spagnuolo. I'm gonna tell you I'd like to have him on my staff.
Okay. And then who's gonna be the head coach of that then?
Well, now you're giving me the biggest problem of all because I became very friendly with Bill Parcells and I became very friendly with Tom Coughlin. Mm-hmm. And I have the most respect that you could have for both of those gentlemen, and they both won 2 Super Bowls apiece for the Giants.
See?
So how can I pick one over the other? I'm going to cop out and not answer that question.
Oh, you cop out on me, my guy? Oh, man. We need a head coach, my guy.
Oh my God!
Hey, how
All
about
right,
this?
all right. I'll tell you what.
One being the head coach, and the other one could be the assistant head coach. So they both.
Okay, if you'll let me have Bill Parcells as the head coach and Tom Coughlin as the associate head coach, I'll take that.
All right, we can work with that. We can work with that, man.
Okay.
Hey, man, it's been great having you on, man. Great talk, man. I loved it. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you at. Also, guys, the link is in the chat, so make sure you guys go give this guy a sub. You know what I'm saying, over there at WFAN on YouTube, man. There's great content, man. It was a great show, and I had a blast.
Very good to talk to you. You can always find me at Giants WFAN on Twitter. I do 3 programs a week, Big Blue Kickoff Live on Giants.com. Obviously over the airwaves at WFAN here in New York at 660 AM or 101.9 FM. Usually every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, I'm on with Richard Neer, and we talk Giants football for about 20 minutes, setting you up for Sunday's game. In this case, they're playing your Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes,
Happy
sir.
holidays,
Yes,
everybody.
sir. Well, hey, man, thanks again for stopping by. Like I always say at the end of my videos, fly, Eagles, fly. Till next time, good luck this week, this Sunday. Hopefully, it won't be that good because I'm looking for that W, guys. Thanks for watching the show. Shout out to all you guys that are in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that like on the way out. And we out. Peace.